story begins in the heart of a desolate desert, where a lone child wanders aimlessly, gnawing on a human finger, his eyes scanning the endless sand for his mother. Meanwhile, not too far away, a man drives a car down a road that suddenly stops in the middle of nowhere. The driver, Wyndham, is a photographer intent on capturing the upcoming solar eclipse. After taking a few shots, he realizes it's getting late and heads back to his car, only to find a young boy standing alone, lost and terrified. Wyndham, concerned, approaches the boy, offering to help, but the child is distant, pointing in a vague direction where he claims to have lost his parents. Without waiting, the boy walks away, leaving Wyndham with no choice but to follow. But the child is stubborn, rejecting Wyndham's assistance, and soon disappears into the desert's shadows, leaving Wyndham stranded as night falls, far from any sign of civilization. He lies down on the cold ground trying to rest, but the events of the day play over and over in his mind, preventing any sleep. Suddenly, strange noises cut through the night air. Wyndham, intrigued and desperate, follows the sounds, leading him to a bizarre scene. Stakes driven into the ground with ropes strung between them, holding bottles that clink together, creating an eerie melody. As he ventures further, he finds himself at the edge of a vast canyon. At the bottom, a wooden house stands, isolated, with a woman wandering nearby, singing softly to herself. Wyndham calls out for help, but the woman ignores his cries, disappearing into the house. Determined, he finds an iron ladder leading down the canyon wall and starts his descent. The ladder only reaches halfway down, where it gives way to a fragile rope ladder. Wyndham cautiously makes his way down, reaching the bottom and approaching the house. He knocks repeatedly, but when there's no response, he pushes the door open and steps inside. The woman, who introduces herself as Alina, is already standing by the stove, as if she'd been expecting him. She offers him dinner without hesitation, and though he initially refuses, she insists, placing a bowl of soup in front of him. Wyndham, still in shock, asks how he can leave this strange place, and mentions the boy he encountered. But Alina, unfazed, suggests he rest until morning, offering him a bed for the night. As Wyndham settles into the bed, he watches Alina as she moves about the room, noting her youthful beauty despite the odd circumstances. The next morning, he gathers his belongings, intent on finding a way out of the canyon. But when he steps outside, the rope ladder he descended on has mysteriously vanished, leaving him trapped. Confused, Wyndham takes out his camera, documenting the eerie surroundings, the strange carvings on the canyon walls, and the overall sense of death that seems to permeate the area. He spots Alina repairing the roof and asks about the missing ladder, but she either doesn't understand or pretends not to. Frustrated, Wyndham spends the day wandering the canyon, shouting for help, but his cries go unanswered. Later, Alina offers to wash his clothes, insisting he can't return home in such a dirty state. Left with no choice, Wyndham agrees, finding himself more and more dependent on this enigmatic woman. That night, sleep eludes him again. He ventures outside, desperately searching for an escape route, but there's none to be found. The next morning, determined to escape, Wyndham searches the house and finds a hammer. He tries to climb the canyon wall, but as he does, he notices something moving above him. Before he can react, a chicken carcass falls from the cliff, hitting him and causing him to lose his grip. He falls hard, injuring his leg with the very hammer he had hoped would aid his escape. Wyndham lies in the darkness, pain shooting through his leg as he cries out for help. Alina rushes to his side, tending to his wounds, but when he questions her about the children he glimpsed on the cliff earlier, she remains silent. The mystery deepens, and Wyndham is left to wonder if he will ever escape this strange and haunting place. For days, Wyndham drifts in and out of consciousness, feverish and disoriented, trapped in a haze where time loses all meaning. Are those children he sees around him real, or are they figments of his fevered mind? He can't tell. But then, finally, a day comes when the fever breaks. Weak and limping, Wyndham forces himself outside, desperate to escape this strange place. He confronts Alina, demanding that she tell the children above to pull him out of there. But Alina, with an unsettling calm, pretends not to understand his desperation. Instead, she offers him comfort, insisting he stay, promising to take care of him. But Wyndham isn't interested in comfort. He wants to get back to his life, his work. He shoves her away, determined to leave, even as he realizes with a sinking heart that his injured leg will take far longer to heal than he'd hoped. Suddenly, voices echo from above. Wyndham looks up to see a boy holding a little girl's hand, both of them smiling down at him. They ask how they can help, and when Wyndham explains he needs to climb out, the boy eagerly promises to bring ropes and use his winch to pull him up. But before leaving, the boy asks an odd question. "What's your favorite color?" Wyndham, confused but desperate, answers red and urges them to hurry. They disappear, and Wyndham, anxious to escape, checks his wallet. He's ready to leave everything behind if it means getting out of there. Moments later, a rope falls from above. The boy's voice calls down, telling Wyndham to tie himself up tight. With hope rekindled, Wyndham secures the rope around himself, and the children begin to pull him up. As he ascends, Wyndham can almost taste freedom. But then, the rope jerks to a stop, leaving him dangling halfway up the canyon wall. Panic sets in as he screams for help, trying to climb the rope himself, but he's too weak. Under the relentless sun, he hangs there, helpless and exposed. Hours pass, or maybe just minutes. Wyndham isn't sure. But then, a sudden spray of water shocks him back to awareness. He looks up to see the boy, grinning maliciously as he hoses Wyndham down. More children appear at the top of the cliff, a ragtag group dressed in clothes clearly stolen from others. They jeer and laugh, swinging the rope so Wyndham crashes painfully against the canyon walls. He cries out for Alina, but when he spots her, she's only yelling angrily at the children, her words lost to him as he blacks out from another brutal collision. When Wyndham wakes, he's back in the bed, and all he can think about is escaping. Alina, confused, tries to calm him, explaining that the children are homeless, surviving together in the desert. But Wyndham is beyond listening. He's focused only on getting away from this nightmare. Neither of them notices the children lurking outside, watching as the house's windows reflect the flickering light of something burning. The next day, Wyndham observes Alina releasing a bird, its wings carrying it into the sky. He watches with a deep, painful envy, how easily it escapes while he remains trapped. Alina hands him a clean set of clothes she found somewhere, and though Wyndham never asked for them, he feels a strange pang of gratitude for her quiet care. Days blend together. Wyndham, now resigned to his situation, plants a small garden at the canyon's base, trying to find some sense of normalcy. The children continue their confusing behavior, sometimes bringing food and supplies that seem to come from nowhere, sometimes taunting him cruelly. Alina accepts it all as if it's just the way things are, while Wyndham is left baffled, unable to make sense of this twisted reality. One night, the silence is shattered by cries from the yard. Alina warns Wyndham not to go out when the children are like this, but he can't stay put. He rushes outside only to be met with a scene of chaos. The boys are dressed in bizarre, mismatched outfits, circling the house in a menacing dance. They begin to push him, striking him with unexpected force. Wyndham tries to fight back, but it's no use. The boys vanish into the night as suddenly as they appeared, leaving Wyndham bruised and shaken, trapped in a place that's more like a nightmare than any reality he's ever known. Wyndham demands answers from Alina. Who are these children? Why do they live here? And why does she stay in this wretched place? But Alina remains disturbingly calm, never once admitting she's a prisoner. Later that evening, she comes to him. Wyndham, desperate for any connection, eagerly accepts her company. Time passes and small green sprouts finally break through the soil in Wyndham's garden. Hope, at last, seems to bloom. But then, the boy in the cap calls to Wyndham from above. He's surprisingly friendly, even offering to bring him a soda. Wyndham, back in his garden, unearths something shocking: a wedding ring and car keys buried in the sand. The discovery is unsettling, but before he can process it, Alina appears with a portrait of a woman, claiming her as the first mother. And then she drops the bombshell: she's pregnant with his child. Wyndham is stunned. He never wanted children here, especially with a woman he barely knows. Anger overtakes him, and he lashes out at Alina. But he's trapped by the reality of the situation. He has no choice but to accept it. The next morning, disaster strikes as local birds ravage his garden, but Alina, unexpectedly cooperative, helps him replant. This act earns a small measure of his gratitude, and slowly a strange routine settles in. Alina manages the household while Wyndham focuses on regaining strength in his injured leg. One day, the boy in the cap visits again. His curiosity is endless, and Wyndham sees a spark in him. Something different, something almost hopeful. Wyndham asks the boy for help. He needs rope and a counterweight, tools to climb out of this hell and take Alina and the boy to the city, where they can have a chance at a real life. The boy, intrigued, promises to help, but before they can plan further, an older boy appears and drags him away. Wyndham shares his hopes with Alina, telling her that the boy is smart, that he wants to learn and live differently. He even offers to help her escape too. But Alina's reaction is bizarre. She tries to understand what Wyndham is missing here. When he says freedom, she's baffled. Isn't he already free? After all, no one stops him from doing anything here. Wyndham, desperate to make her see reason, talks about the outside world, the ocean, a cheeseburger, but Alina is lost. She doesn't know what a cheeseburger is. Wyndham explains the simple pleasure of the dish, but Alina remains unfazed. She recalls her mother's words, saying that outside, there are only mirages while everything here, in the desert, is real. In a last-ditch effort, Wyndham pulls out his camera, showing Alina photos from the day he ended up in this nightmare. But what catches her attention isn't the solar eclipse, but a random shot inside his car, music playing in the background. It's as if the normalcy of that image is what shocks her most. Night falls, and Wyndham is plagued by nightmares. Terrifying visions of the children, their faces twisted in cruel mockery. The next morning, a scream shatters the air. Wyndham rushes outside to find a horrific scene. The boy in the cap is crucified over the canyon, wires strung around him like a grotesque marionette. The savages on the cliff laugh, their joy a sickening contrast to the horror. Alina's demeanor shifts in an instant. She coldly declares that her brothers would never do such a thing, and then, with fury in her eyes, accuses Wyndham of murdering her son. Before he can react, she strikes him with a board, knocking him out cold. When Wyndham regains consciousness, he's trapped inside a cage. His desperate pleas fall on deaf ears as Alina treats him like an animal, feeding him scraps while her children watch his suffering with unsettling fascination. One day, hope flickers again. A girl appears on the cliff, clearly out of place in this desolate world. Wyndham catches her attention, though fear grips him. He can't shout and risk waking Alina. He whispers, begging the girl to call for help. She nods, understanding the gravity of his situation, and assures him she'll return soon with aid. But as the girl disappears into the distance, Wyndham is left with the gnawing fear that help might never come, and this nightmare might never end. Wyndham hides in the shadows, watching Alina, heavily pregnant, as she goes about her daily tasks. Suddenly, screams pierce the air. The savages appear, dragging the girl to the cliff's edge. Without mercy, they kill her, a brutal act unfolding before Wyndham's helpless eyes. Time passes, and Wyndham remains trapped in a cage, forced to witness strange, unsettling rituals performed by Alina, her children, and her brothers. One day, he declares his desire to stay forever, to raise their child and love Alina as his queen. He vows to teach the child everything he knows, ready to give his life for this new family. But Alina just laughs at him. Choice? She mocks. He never had one. He's nothing more than a seed blown into this desolate place. The child belongs to her alone. Wyndham will remain in the cage until the baby is born. In this harsh desert, nothing is wasted. The day of the birth arrives. Alina's screams echo through the house as Wyndham paces in his cage, desperate and helpless. She reaches out to him, begging for his help, saying she has never experienced such a difficult labor. Reluctantly, she releases him from the cage, and Wyndham does all he can to ease her pain. The children watch from the cliff, silent and eerie. As the birth progresses, Wyndham notices a ladder descending from above, a chance at escape. But Alina's cries pull him back. The child is born just as a solar eclipse darkens the sky. Wyndham, overwhelmed with emotion, takes the baby girl in his arms, kissing her with the joy of a new father. Alina, now desperate, asks for the baby, promising to protect her until she becomes the new mother, fulfilling her purpose. Wyndham's moment of joy is shattered when a boy sneaks up and slits his throat. As Wyndham collapses, bleeding out, the boy assures him it's for the mother's sake. Alina, cold and detached, packs Wyndham's belongings into a chest, then goes to the baby, whispering promises of safety. Outside, Wyndham's body decomposes, turning into grass and dust, a chilling end to a strange and haunting story.